how come my photos never look this good?
But more importantly, why don't yours?
No, I'm kidding. Yours are great, but the fact is, I do see so many street photos that are pretty forgettable. This happens most of all to me, especially when I look through my older work. Sometimes I look at a photo and wonder why I ever shot it in the first place. The good news is that there's a cure for boring and forgettable photos, and the even better news is that I'll teach you. So there's 3 key ideas that I want you to keep in mind next weekend when you go out to shoot, and at the end I'll show you my favorite street photo of all time that I think ties all of this together very nicely. First though, when we see these photos that are the artistic equivalent of plain unseasoned chicken, what's missing? There's a correct answer, and that answer is a punctum. And no, that's not a medical term. My digestive system is just fine, thank you very much. So what's the punctum? Well, you might know that your photo needs a subject. That's someone or something that the photo is of. You might also know that your photo needs a focal point. That's the place in the photo that your eyes go to. Sometimes that's the subject and sometimes it's not. The punctum is neither of those. It's the secret third option. Originally, this idea was thunk up by a Mr. Roland Barthes, a French philosopher. He reckoned that each photo has a studium, which is like the obvious symbolic meaning of the photograph, like, for example, a bridge, or a man, or the Great Depression was really, really shit, but also a punctum, which he describes as a small, often accidental detail in the photo that really pierces the viewer, grabs you by the collar, and forces you to emotionally connect with the photo. Here's a great example. You've probably seen this absolute banger shot by another clever French dude, Henri Cartier-Bresson. The studium is the perfect timing, the hustle and bustle of city life, and I think that's pretty easy to see. But the punctum is this. If you look in the background, you see that billboard with the picture of the dancer perfectly mimicking the pose of the man jumping? For me, at least, that punctum does create an emotional reaction. It reaches out to me on a deeper level. It makes me feel like the world is a bit more magical, and coincidences like those are proof that we're all one big art project. It gives me the warm fuzzies, you know? It would also give me the warm fuzzies if you clicked somewhere down there and subscribed. Now, I don't know if HCB saw that billboard or if it was an accident, but what I do know is what I saw. I shot this a few years ago in Ealing Broadway, and the studium is pretty obvious. It's a construction worker, he looks a bit tired, he's popped out for a break, and he's looking bang down the lens. The punctum is the sign right next to him. There's 2 cameras pointed at this poor bastard, and I think that changes what this photo means and how it makes you feel. And I 1000% wish that I could take credit for that, but I didn't notice that sign until this photo was printed. Now, I like this punctum idea, but I think that old mate Barthes might have been a little bit narrow in his interpretation. He came up with these ideas based on a photo of his mother shortly after she died, and I prefer to expand the idea a little bit, especially since what photography means and does has changed a lot since 1981. You might think I'm not qualified to critique old French philosophers, and you'd be dead right, but I think that while a punctum can be a single accidental detail, it could also be lots of them. It could be something unconventional in the photo, or something unconventional about how the photo was taken, or it could even be outside the photo entirely. Imagine showing a glam fashion portrait in an art gallery next to a load of war photos. Would probably change how you felt about Chanel for a hot minute. And sometimes I think it could even be the subject we choose themselves. Think of William Eggleston's famous tricycle photo. The tricycle is the studium, obviously, but the fact that he shot a tricycle like that is the punctum. Now that's all well and great to know in our heads, but how do we actually use it? What can you do next time you're out taking photos to make sure that they have punctums? Puncti? Step 1, prime. No, not the energy drinks, although caffeine does help. No, I'm talking about priming your brain. You ever try to start a lawnmower without giving it a little bit of gas first? It's not very much fun. You have to prime the engine so it's got something to explode. And you are a lawnmower. Or your brain is a lawnmower engine. It's a bad analogy, forget it. What I mean is you can't go out completely blank slate with the only goal being take good pictures and get likes on Instagram because, well, for one, let's face it, no one's getting likes on Instagram these days. And 2, that's too broad. That is how you could end up with forgettable shots. Have you ever had a conversation with someone about like a specific car model and then for the rest of the week, they are everywhere. It's like all of a sudden your suburb seems to spawn in 800 Toyota Crowns. Or maybe you buy a new piece of clothing and it feels like you're on the Truman Show and they've told all of the cast members to also wear red jackets. That is called the Baader-Meinhof phenomenon, and it is a photographic superpower if you know how to use it. So you can prime your brain in a couple of different ways. The first and most obvious one is to think of specific things you're looking for. You might go out and think, okay, today I will look for circles. And believe me, you will see them everywhere. I really like to do this with hands. I think hands are very interesting and expressive and make a great punctum. Sometimes I like to do it with shoes. When you give your brain a focus like this, you will get interesting photos that you would never ever have spotted otherwise. But you could also prime in a more abstract way. You could think of themes. Today, I will go and photograph loneliness. Today, I will photograph the joy of eating. And as long as you keep this in mind, again, you will see photos that you would usually miss that fit that theme. But aside from just thinking about things, you can prime yourself an extra level up with what you consume. If you want to take funny odd street photos, then before you go out, flip through some photo books that have funny odd street photos in them. If you want to take wistful documentary landscapes, flip through some books with those. When you do this, you're effectively deliberately doing that thing to your brain that makes you notice all the Toyotas. And that makes it so much easier and more fun to come home at the end of the day with photos that are what you wanted and have a punctum, instead of 150 boring, forgettable photos of the backs of people's heads. We've all done it. But if you open your mind too much, your brain will fall out. Don't fall into the trap of consuming art and content for like 4 hours and then going out for 20 minutes and expecting to come home with photos like Martin Parr. That's not how it works. And that's also partially why step 2 is limits. If you go out looking for circles, that's great. You will see them everywhere. Car tires, manhole covers, traffic lights, eyes. But what you then risk is running all over town doing 50,000 steps and taking a photo of every single circle you can possibly find, but none of them are any good. And that, I think, is why limits are really, really important. I think it's a very bad idea to give yourself too much freedom. If I had infinite freedom, I would spend my entire life watching rally compilations on Instagram like one of those characters from WALL-E. So how can you limit yourself in a way that gets you punctum maxing and banger pilled? Well, there's the easy, obvious stuff. Use a prime lens and not a zoom. I love zooms, I've got them, but the fact is, if you're using a zoom lens, you have given yourself about 1 billion more ways to take the exact same photo. Having too many options is not a good thing. With a prime, you have to think longer and harder about how you want to take the photo instead of just like shooting burst mode as you zoom in and out. Personally, I like to use a 28mm lens most of the time, but it's completely up to you. If you're nosy, you can check out all the gear I use in the description below. And similarly, restrict your location. I have made this mistake so many times. Don't let yourself wander around the whole city without stopping. If you keep moving around, you won't end up looking that hard. But if you say, today I will photograph only one street or one town square, then that forces you to really look a lot harder. It forces your brain to do more work. I know this sounds annoying, but I promise you, if you shoot one street for 3 hours, you will, in the 3rd hour, notice a great picture that you walked straight past many times for the last 3 hours. Again, this is taking away some of our freedoms so that we work harder. But aside from beating the dead horse of creative constraints, there are other things that I like to do to make it easier for me to spot a punctum. And you are going to hate them. Leave your phone at home. You won't die if you don't have your phone for the afternoon, but think about it. When's the last time you actually went out without your phone? Like 2005? If you have your phone on you, when you get bored, you will pull it out of your pocket and start scrolling down the RageBait app. Nobody has ever taken an award-winning photo while scrolling down Twitter. I think it's so important that when you do get bored, you have no options and you just have to be bored for a bit. I know it sounds a bit preachy, but honestly, every time I have been bored and then I've just let the boring happen, that's usually when my best and most creative ideas just fly out of nowhere and hit me in the face like one of those fish that jump out of the stream, you know? Another benefit of leaving your tiny box of pain and eternal suffering at home is that it's very helpful for step 3, which we will get to, but first I want to tell you about the sponsor of today's video, Framer. Framer is a really cool way to create and publish websites, and I used it to make slowshutterspeeds.com, which is a reference website where you can see loads of examples of photos that I've shot at slower shutter speeds and the settings that I used. Making a website or a portfolio with Framer is so much fun, and it's really easy to set up. To make slow shutter speeds, I just went through Framer's massive library of templates and I picked one out that was nice and minimal and good for showing off photos. It would be a really great option for you if you don't have a portfolio yet. Then I jumped into the editor, which is super easy to use, and I made some tweaks to the fonts and colors, things like that. And then I just uploaded all the photos, typed in what I wanted to say, and it was done, and it's live. It's a real website that I made. If you're smarter than me and you want to get more advanced, don't worry, because Framer's got that covered too. If you do want to get in the thick of it and do custom stuff, you can. There's really powerful analytics tools, there's A/B testing, and there's even localization, so you can share your ideas in different languages all over the planet. I think with everything going on with social media right now, there's never been a more important time to own your own place on the internet where you can share your work without an algorithm getting in the way. And doing that with Framer is a no-brainer. You really have no excuse not to make a landing page or a portfolio or just a website to showcase what you've been up to with Framer this weekend. Launch your site for free at framer.com and use the code HunterCreates for an upgrade on the house. There's links below. A big thank you to Framer and to you for supporting what I do. Step 3, feel good. I don't care if you are in Shibuya or Patagonia or Columbus, Ohio. If you're tired or hungry or grumpy, you are going to take bad photos that are forgettable. That's kind of obvious, but I think it's actually much more important than you think. It's not just that you need to feel good to do your best work or to be able to spot a punctum, but I think the specific flavor of good matters a lot. If you look at the attitude of a lot of great photographers, they all seem to have this very similar, very calm, kind of zen demeanor. And especially with street photographers, a sense of humor. And not in the way where they're cracking one-liners like a comic book character all the time, but more just that they see life a little lighter. I've definitely learned over the years that being in this mood is very important to me personally to take the photos that I like to take, and probably also just good for life in general, I think. And I'm sorry to have to agree with your mum here, but she's right. It's diet and sleep and exercise and all of that stuff you've heard a million times, so I won't go on about it. But specific to photography though, there are a few things that I recommend that help me to stay in a positive mindset. First of all, I try my best not to think about the outcome or the final photo or what I'll do with the photos while I'm shooting. If I'm shooting digital, I try my absolute hardest not to look at the back screen until I'm finished for the day. I just try to immerse myself and get in the flow of taking photos. Second, I always like to stop and have a bit of a break every couple of hours or so. Have some street food, a Red Bull, rest my eyes and my brain. This is pretty useful for kind of giving you a mental reset and stopping you from any loops you've got stuck in. It's also pretty useful for making sure your legs don't fall off. Another really important way that you can make sure that you're feeling good when you're out taking photos is to make some photography friends. I'm 100% serious. Just go up to other people with cameras on the street and introduce yourself. This is how I've met some of my best friends. And when you have that sense of community, it can really help when you're feeling a little bit negative about your work. You might find this a bit trickier in a smaller town than a big city, but there are plenty of online communities you could look at joining as well. For example, my Discord, there's nearly 1,000 people that are waiting to be your friend. There's a link below. Remember how I said I'd show you my favorite photo of all time and tie this all together really nicely? This is Don't Just Tell Them, Show Them by Jesse Marlowe. He's an Australian street photographer and I really dig his work. This book was shot, I think, entirely in Melbourne, Australia. This one is a perfect example of punctum. It's a photo of some landscaping work happening, but this couple is walking on a sunny day with an umbrella. That makes this photo feel much more like I'm looking at some sort of Alice in Wonderland alternate reality. This shot is full of them. There's this guy, he's laughing in the telephone booth. There's this guy in the alleyway picking something up off the ground. These are punctums. Punked high. And this photo is my favorite street photo of all time. I actually didn't know that street photography really existed when I first started, and I think I saw this photo on like a blog post or something. It's such a simple idea, but I love it. These construction blokes are carrying a huge sheet of glass, but until you see the punctum, the glass, It really does look like it's a line of manly builders doing a line dance throughout the city. And the reason that I think that Jesse's work is such a great way to tie this all together is because you can tell he's done all 3 steps. He's primed his brain, and you can see that in this book. He notices people working, he notices textures, and for some reason, a lot of legs. He also limits himself. Jesse is a Leica ambassador, and as far as I know, he only shoots on the Leica Q cameras, which means 1 lens. And he shot this project all in 1 city. And finally, I think you can tell both from interviews he's done and from looking at the photos that he takes that he has the right mindset while shooting these. He was having fun. That fun is contagious, and it comes through in the book. I've never met Jesse, but I guarantee that we'd get along because I can feel his sense of humor through the way he shoots. He sees the lighter, wackier side of life, and he takes photos that showcase how weird being human really is. And I'll tell you what, these are definitely not forgettable. I first saw that photo maybe 5 or 6 years ago, and it's stuck with me ever since. If you want to learn a bit more about Jesse, I've linked his website below. But what if you live in a tiny, boring, small town and there's nothing to shoot, nothing going on at all? Well, lucky for you, you can watch this video right here where I'll show you how to take great photos in boring places. Stay hydrated and create art.